Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. You know, the more and more that we cover this Mica Miller case and her husband, John Paul Miller, there are things that we're learning every day about this case and just how tortured Mica Miller was and how abused she was by this man you see on the screen. And it's, to me, it's disturbing now. Of course, everyone felt that he potentially could have been the one that killed her till it was irrefutably proven by the police that this, in fact, was a self-inflicted wound. But before that, based on all the police reports that Mica Miller made against John Paul Miller here, Mica Miller was manipulated, abused, and stalked by her husband. And my whole dissertation in this episode is, well, what happens now? Does he just get away with this? Like most abusers, he's a coward. And he's already hiding behind his attorney. The church has taken him down or relieved him of his duties as the pastor of the church that he is in charge of, and just he's being protected. He's being protected right now, and we don't know what is going to be. Will there be any punishment for him? Will he be called out for his deeds in this caper? And of course, the name of the church is the Solid Rock Church. So, like a lot of these churches, and religion in general, people are very manipulated by religion, and sometimes not in a very good way. And it appears that this man, John Paul Miller, used his powers as a pastor, as a preacher, to manipulate people. And his behavior didn't necessarily jive with being a man of the cloth. Perhaps that's an old term we used to use, but he seems like the new man of the cloth. We have a picture on the screen now of him going to a restaurant and over tipping a waitress and then asking her to leaving his phone number and asking her to send him pictures of her in a bathing suit. And this waitress, he asked her to send him bikini pics after leaving his phone number and a large tip on the receipt. So what is this guy all about? And then, when we look into it, that Micah knew him from the age of perhaps 10, but from the age of 14 on, she was babysitting for his children. Was there grooming in the way that an adult would groom a child? In this case, a 14-year-old girl. Was there grooming? That's disturbing in itself. That potentially, again, he used his position of power. He used his position of being older than this young woman. And there's a picture of Micah on the screen. Everything about this case is just disturbing in the fact that Micah was tortured by this guy, and at least 10 or 12 police reports were made in the previous year. Why was nothing done? Why was there no arrests made? How was he able to slash her tires and named in the complaint report? How was he able to put tracking devices in her car. And then when he's confronted about it, he admits it, but he says his private eye did it. Whether you did it or your private eye did it, it's against the law. That's called an illegal search. It's like a search and seizure, following someone. It's against the law, Mr. John Paul Miller, man of the cloth, stalker, manipulator. It's almost hilarious when he tells his attorney or says, I never did anything bad to my wife. Dude, you are the poster child for wife abuse. And then to stand and hide like the coward you are, it's just incredible. It's incredible. I only hope that in some way, civilly, they can take this guy's money from him, if that's the only thing they can do to him. I don't know if anything he's done has crossed the line at this point, because the complainant is no longer among us. Mica Miller is deceased. So is there anything they could do to this man now criminally? He broke the law numerous times. And was he not, did the police not arrest him because of his power in the community? Was that what it was? Were they intimidated by this guy? Were they somehow intimidated by the Solid Rock Church? Was that it? Because from what I hear and what I definitely think is that he could have absolutely been arrested. And when Mica made these police reports, why was there no automatically an order of protection issued? Why did that not happen? Does anyone know the answer to that? Does anyone know the answer to that? 10, 12 police reports, him named as the person that slashed her tires. Why was there no order of protection issued? Why was he not arrested? These are questions I have, because perhaps an arrest in this case could have prevented Mica Miller, her death. Very possibly. So when we question the actions of the police, when we question the actions of others that didn't come to Mica Miller's aid, resulting in her committing suicide, the system failed her. The system absolutely failed her. How do we feel about that? I feel horrible about it, and I'm not even in Myrtle Beach, North Carolina, where this church is. I can't, you can't, I'm sure her friends were supportive of her. But sometimes within these churches, people are intimidated by the church. And perhaps they don't do the right thing because they're afraid of the church. I don't know if, in fact, this is the case here, but I've heard some people come out against this church and saying that it is cultish, cult-like, C-U-L-T, cult-like. Because it seems that Mica Miller suffered here and no one came to her aid. She suffered in silence. She was bullied. She was manipulated. She was tortured by this guy. Manipulated, abused, and stalked by a pastor, by a man of the cloth, stalked. Why did he get away with this? Why does he continue to get away with this? Disgusting, some of the things we're seeing here. Folks, hang on to your hats. Hang on to your seats. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone. The police off-the-cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch by Collider.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
News Nation has found a video of Mica Miller and showing just how her husband was stalking her. And in this same video, his attorney tries to refute that this even occurred. That's a coward that hides behind his attorney. Notice also, after the occurrence, Mica Miller's suicide, the police had called in members of her family to explain the evidence to her. And the same courtesy was offered to John Paul Miller. Come on in, we're going to explain. He wouldn't come in. And I guarantee you why he wouldn't. He probably thought he was going to get arrested. And his attorney probably said, don't go in there because they may slap those silver bracelets on you. I wish they would have, So he wouldn't come in. So he was never given that session with the police that they would explain the evidence to him. This is News Nation talking about what they've uncovered here as far as the stalking video.
I want to stop here and bring in News Nation's national correspondent, Rich McHugh. He knows a lot about these cases and how to investigate them. You may not know this, but Rich McHugh was Ronan Farrow's producer when they broke the Harvey Weinstein story. Okay, so Rich, the biggest issue has been all along the police reports about Mica saying that she was being harassed by someone repeatedly. Someone had put razors in her tire, a deflation device, a tracking device, had chased her from a gas station to a car dealership, and the name was redacted. And tonight you have information about that redacted name. Who is it?
Well, we're going to show you a piece of video in just a moment, Ashley. First, some context, though, is that you gave some of it. Ashley, we FOIA'd these police documents. There's about a dozen of them. And this one document from March 11th paints a picture. And if we have video of that police document, I want to quote from it. So when we see the actual video, we can make sense of it. In the police document, the police officer writes that he was at East Coast Honda in Myrtle Beach in reference to harassment, that Mica was getting her tire fixed after it was slashed, that she told the officer the tracking device was on her car, that the suspect showed up, quote, she told him to go away, but she does not want to talk. And then when she pulled out her phone to record, he sped off. The victim said he leaves and comes back. That appears to be the moment we're about to show you. Roll the tape if we have it.
Walk away.
I'll show you the pictures.
Do you want to go to jail?
That right there, when he says, I'll show you the pictures, did they perhaps have some sensual, sexual pictures that he took of her as husband and wife? And is he now threatening to put them out on Facebook, he said? That's a dirtbag, a total dirtbag. But was that what he was doing? Because we all saw her, that little 2 or 3 minute interview she did where she was trying to coach other women that had in fact been abused. I want to play it again when we see this little dirtbag. Let's play it again.
Walk away.
I'll show you the pictures.
Do you want to go to jail?
They'll be on Facebook in a few hours.
Alrighty, you'll be in jail in a few hours. Walk away.
Now, that moment shows it's a window into everything that we've kind of been guessing between these two, the struggles that they've been having for the previous 2 years, it sounds like. But in the weeks leading up to her death, there were multiple police reports. And this was one of those contentious days where police were called twice. And this video kind of shows the nature of the relationship in that very moment. Now, it's worth saying, he has not been charged with anything. Police have ruled this a suicide. So this is just context for an extremely troubled relationship, Ashley.
Thank you for watching.
Something, a great report, and I'm glad that they recovered that information. But my question now is, why was he never arrested? Why? She made multiple police reports, and he was never arrested. The police know, and everyone knows, the only way to slow down an abuser is to slap some handcuffs on him. Make him go to court. Make him describe his conduct. And when he gets arrested, he spends the night in jail. Guess what the judge automatically does? He slaps an order of protection that if he goes near, in this case, his wife, he can just be arrested. If he calls her on the phone, if he comes within 500 feet of her. I question in this instance, this case, why was it never done? Why? I just, I want this. This is the video too that just breaks my heart when I watch this, because even in this video, she says some things that he, on this, when we see his stalking video, she talks about it in this video.
So today my heart's a little heavy. I've had a lot of women that have reached out to me about situations of abuse. And I just want to tell you what a lot of people have told me lately and reminded me, because I think I forgot. I knew, but I pushed it in the back of my head just because of my situation. But you are the bride of Christ. Before anybody else's bride, male or female, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what gender you are. Abuse is abuse. And you are the bride of Christ. And my Bible says that he took all the abuse you could think of for you so that you didn't have to live that life of slavery and bondage.
This was a
so
little.
Today my heart's a little heavy.
This was a
I've had a lot of.
Then there was a version of this that was over 2 minutes long that she spoke about if someone forces you to do drugs, if someone forces you do sexual things that you don't want to do, or takes pictures of you and he threatened with that. He threatened her with that in that News Nation report. And I think that's what she was probably talking about. But she made reports about this, and I'm gonna play this dirtbag again on the scene, saying what he said to her.
Walk away.
I'll show you the pictures.
Do you want to go to jail?
They'll be on Facebook in a few hours.
Alrighty, you'll be in jail in a few hours. Walk away.
So that's the same dirtbag that says, oh, he never did anything bad to his wife. He never stalked her. He never. Meanwhile, he's the one named on the complaint reports as the one slashing her tires, as the one that put those tracking devices that he claims now it was his private investigator. Then bring you and your private investigator, and both of you should be arrested. Both of you. And I want to know also why this case wasn't referred to a detective. And if it was, why was there never an arrest made? As I said, arrests can be magical. They can stop people from doing the conduct they're doing, from committing the acts they're committing, because then they get to feel what it's like to be in jail. And it's amazing to me that it was never done. In this case, it was never done. And that's why this guy was emboldened. That's why he was able to do the things he did and get away with it, because he was never called on the carpet. He was never, again, I sound like I'm beating a dead horse. He was never arrested. So he was emboldened to do whatever the hell he wanted to do. And that's the sad part of this. And, according to Mica Miller's family, her attorney, he had brainwashed her. And is this part of the religious aspect of this church, that he also controlled his wife in that way? Let's hear what the attorney has to say here.
About that. In fact, we were going to try to start seeking a civil action attorney to consult with to see if some of the documents that we have found, or not found, but that Mica left in my care, as well as her family also had found, there seems to me that there could be a civil action, not against the police. The police, under the circumstances, responded, I think, appropriately under what was happening at the time.
I don't think they did respond appropriately. I mean, how do you make 10 or 11 reports and no one's in handcuffs? This isn't not, it's not a Sherlock Holmes who done it. They knew who done it and he was never arrested.
But there are other things that happened that are related to this church. She was employed there. There's a question about whether she was appropriately paid for her time. She was the church itself was used by John Paul. I have letters that he wrote on church stationery to her, basically disparaging her. He went after everything that meant anything to this young woman. And I want to go back to the question about, what else this could have been if he didn't actually pull the trigger. This man, in my opinion, based on the documents, my conversations with Mica whenever she was alive, tell me that she was brainwashed by this man. He abused her in every possible way that there is. Financially, he abused her by taking away things, phones, access to money, took away her car, those types of things to try to gain control of her. Every time she tried to leave him, he would harass and stalk her to the point that she just felt like she had to give up and go back. And he abused her not only emotionally, financially, he abused her religiously in terms of her religion and her relationship with God. He demeaned her in every aspect that he could. There is a video of a sermon of him that I was just so taken aback, and my jaw hit the ground because I felt like I had come across the answer of maybe why she would have taken it this far. And that is, he had her convinced that this was what she should do. In my opinion, I believe he had her convinced that it would be the only way that she could escape him to some degree. I believe that he had her convinced all the way. I believe that he used every tactic and tool that he could. The mounds of paperwork that I have is incredible. She collected a lot of things. She kept a notebook. I have boxes of journals, which, by the way, he's made 100 phone calls looking for, as I understand. And he is constantly trying to stay in front of this, spin some some story. And I think we have enough here that...
With that evidence, I'm curious. I'm sorry to jump in, Regina, but Sierra, do you think you can shed some light on why your sister told the police that John Paul had been grooming her since the age of 10, but that her, her involvement with the church only began at age 14 in a youth program? Do you know what the difference is between those two claims?
If I had to assume, I would guess that she probably meant 2010, not 10. Since 2010 would be a better estimate of what she might have meant.
Yeah, I don't think
that
lines
she
up
with being age 14
years old.
No, she's consistently said around 14, 15 years old. I've never heard her ever say 10 years old.
Thank you for.
So you see how much abuse there went on, and this guy was unbelievable. And just recently, he was caught trying to go into her apartment, perhaps to try and retrieve some of the items that no doubt will cause him a great deal of grief. That will cause him a great deal of grief if they are found out, or they could cost him a lot in a civil trial. So Mica Miller was manipulated, abused, and stalked by this guy. I don't want to see this guy go unpunished. criminally, I don't think they can really go after him criminally, but civilly perhaps is the only way they can lay a glove on this guy. And we all want to make sure that they do lay gloves on this guy because he's not a good guy, from what we're seeing, what we're hearing, what people are talking about with this guy.
Walk away.
Show you the pictures.
Do you want to go to jail?
They'll be on Facebook in a few hours.
Alrighty, you'll be in jail in a few hours. Walk away.
News Nation obtaining this exclusive video of a heated argument between a South Carolina woman and her estranged husband just weeks before her death. Investigators have ruled 30-year-old Mica Miller's death a suicide. But her family and friends tell News Nation there's much more to what actually happened, especially since Miller had just recently filed for divorce. News Nation's Rich McHugh has looked into this story since the very beginning, joining us live with the latest developments. Rich, what can you tell us?
Hi, Alex. So first, we need some context so but our audience can better understand that moment and what they were seeing. We FOIA'd a number of documents from the police. We got back a whole treasure trove from the Myrtle Beach Police Department, about 14 different police reports filed in the past 2 years, many of them within the past 3 months. There's 2 in question that were filed on March 11th of this year, so just about 2 months ago. I want to read from them directly. They say, police officers respond to East Coast Honda. That's what we see in the video. She's at East Coast Honda in Myrtle Beach in reference to harassment, that Mica was getting her tire fixed after it was slashed, that she told the officer of the tracking device on her car, that the suspect showed up, quote, she told him to go away, but she does not want to talk. And then when she pulled out her phone to record, he sped off. The victim then leaves and goes to East Coast Honda. Again, this is what we're about to see. And the suspect showed up again. That appears to be this moment at East Coast Honda. Let's roll that tape.
Away.
I'll show you the pictures.
Do you want to go to jail?
They'll be on Facebook in a few hours.
Alrighty, you'll be in jail in a few hours. Walk away.
Now, this video, for people that have been watching this is a window into the nightmare that she had been living. She had told the police officer in that police report that day that she was afraid for her life. And we're seeing why. She's telling him to walk away. He's saying he's threatening to post pictures on Facebook. He's presumably tracked her to that location. We're going to be asking the police for answers on if they have done any follow-up to these allegations that she has made.
Yeah, really alarming stuff, and great work getting all those documents, Rich. I know it's painted a...
So there you see it. He was stalking her. And yet, he said, the News Nation investigative reporter said that he had been stalking her and she had made over 14 reports in the past 2 years. So my big question is, why was he never arrested? Why was he never arrested? That's the question I have, is that the only thing that would have slowed him down would have been if he got arrested. But yet all these reports did not result in an arrest. So I don't know how the police can defend that, why there was no arrest. And again, we could look at it from being removed from this as, was there power and influence exerted by this church, by the Solid Rock Church? Did they influence what was going to happen because they had power within that community, that they had influence in that community? Is that why there was no arrest? Because clearly this guy, John Paul Miller, the pastor of this church, was abusing her, was stalking her, was manipulating her. You heard the ways he manipulated her financially, psychologically, religiously. I think it was implied in her statement, sexually. Pictures. You saw him on that tape threatening her with pictures. What type of pictures were they? Were they perhaps intimate pictures they had taken and that he was threatening to put on social media? This is a pastor of a church. This is a good guy who claimed he, and I'm saying that very sarcastically, claimed he never bothered or hurt his wife in any way whatsoever. Again, Mica Miller went to the police multiple times in the months preceding her death. Multiple times. But unfortunately, nothing was done, and it led to this. That's a picture of her buying a 9mm 6-hour in Dick's Pawn Shop in South Carolina. That's what it led to, because there was no one helped her. She was sort of on her own. And I suppose she has friends. Mica Miller purchasing a gun, what did she do with it? We all know now what she did with it. And it was criminal that no one came to her aid. No one helped this poor girl, Mica Miller went to police multiple times in the months preceding her death. Well, why did anyone do anything about this guy on the screen? John Paul Miller, the pastor of a church who never bothered his wife. He just stalks her, just follows her around, just slashes her tires, just puts search devices inside her car. But I'm a good guy. I never did anything wrong to her. This is disgraceful. And, when we see cases taken too far, the result is what resulted in this case. A real bad, tragic ending to this case.
Legal analyst. Listen, Mica was clearly under duress. She called police 15 times in the last year. And this allegation that John Paul met her when she was 10 years old and began grooming her, could he be charged for crimes related to that?
Let's talk big picture. Even though Mica's no longer here, he could still be criminally and civilly liable. And by the way, in South Carolina, unlike other states, there's no statute of limitations with crimes. So if we're talking about, let's say, for example, grooming, there's no crime of grooming. It kind of encompasses other
creepy.
things. Well, it could be sexual exploitation of a child. Now, I don't want to make innuendos. I don't want to make accusations, but these are really serious matters we're talking about. She's alleging things of perhaps assault. She's alleging things perhaps of exploitation. She's talking about how she was involuntarily committed to a hospital. Now, what complicates that is he did have a power of attorney, but
why? Is that normal?
So generally speaking, power of attorneys are when someone is in a position where they can't make healthcare decisions for themselves.
Right.
If this is a situation where she could, and I don't know what the terms of it
she's
said.
Young and healthy.
She's young and healthy.
Video she made of herself just not even 2 months ago?
Exactly. I mean, the terms of it would be where she would have to be in a position where he can make those decisions. But again, you have witnesses who sign that. So something's not adding up about it. Doesn't mean it's a crime. And it seems like her family is suggesting, and we know that the burden of proof is lower, they may file a lawsuit. And, there's something about a wrongful death lawsuit. They may not be able to prove in a court of law that there were crime was committed, who's responsible for a death, but a wrongful death lawsuit, the standard's lower.
There is case law that, there was a case in Massachusetts a few years ago. A woman was found criminally responsible for her boyfriend or fiance's suicide, driving him to suicide with only her words.
Yeah, that's the Michelle Carter case.
Right.
And look, that was involuntary manslaughter. That is when you're acting in such a reckless way that it's foreseeable your actions would cause the death of that person. We have to be very careful about that. Unfortunately, in today's society, people take their lives for a number of reasons. They blame a number of people. We can't open the floodgates for crimes to be committed unless he was directing her to kill herself or encouraging her to do it. I don't think that's going to fly there.
Oh, what an awful case. I'm sure we're going to learn more as this the family continues to push for an investigation. And thanks so much.
The law in this case is very, it's very tough. I mean, it's sort of like, could he be charged criminally? And I mean, I sort of have doubts about that, even though the attorney there said there's a possibility. I think they're more likely to get satisfaction in a civil wrongful death lawsuit. Because there is lots of proof, lots of evidence. And again, he went to her apartment trying to retrieve potential evidence against him. And apparently Mica kept extensive journals, handwritten journals about her life. And what more damaging to this guy than something like that? And he was trying to just still say he had nothing to do with any of this. He never mistreated his wife, never, ever mistreated his wife. However, we know that that's not true. He mistreated his wife many, many times, and on the screen here, you see Pastor John Miller asked waitress to send him bikini pics after leaving his phone number and a large tip. I don't know if that's is that the behavior of a pastor, of a man of the cloth, asking a waitress to send him, bikini pics, if even that, and leaving her a large tip and leaving his phone number. I don't know if that's the behavior of a man of the cloth. But just know that his wife, Mica Miller, was very much tortured by this guy. And we'll find out much more in the days and weeks to come, just how much. You notice he's keeping a real low key. His attorney speaks for him. He won't show his face. And more things will come out about him and perhaps the church as this investigation moves forward. But something, the worst thing already occurred. Mica took her life, and there's no bringing her back. So could we maybe hold someone accountable for this? And I know that Mica had said to her friends, if I'm killed, he did it. But the evidence is that she, in fact, took her own life. So, unfortunately, he can't be charged. Well, he has a rock solid alibi, but we see her here in this picture on the screen of purchasing that 9mm 6-hour, and there's just real solid evidence that he was not involved. Is his behavior quite erratic for a guy who just lost his wife, whether they were getting divorced or not? Yeah. Certainly doesn't strike me as a good guy, as a man of the cloth, the way he just laid it on his parishioners as he was given a sermon. He said, "Oh, I just got word that my wife passed away." And then he goes into it and just as if he didn't care, And I think it shows a lack of character. Yeah, definitely a lack of character in the way he delivered that to his congregation, and just quite pathetic, in my opinion. Let me play some more from News Nation about some of the reports she made over time.
Myrtle Beach, South Carolina tonight, John Paul Miller has not, repeat, not been charged with any crime in relation to his wife Mica's death, which has been ruled a suicide. But her friends and her family are pushing for the investigation to continue, and we have learned some disturbing new information that tells us why. It was already known that the Millers had a troubled marriage, and hey, behind closed doors, even the happiest couples have rough patches, but not like this. A trove of court and police documents released today reveals the Millers' relationship was no portrait of connubial bliss, allegedly characterized by emotional abuse, manipulation, and control. John Paul, who until recently was the pastor of the Solid Rock Church in Myrtle Beach, has just released a statement denying these allegations. The documents were released just weeks after Mica took her own life on April 27th, her suicide coming 2 days after she served her husband with divorce papers to end their 7-year marriage. Joining us now with details is News Nation investigative correspondent Rich McHugh, who's been digging through all these documents. And Rich, you've been talking to Mica's friends. What have they told you?
Hi, Elizabeth. So her friends are doing exactly what you say. They're continuing to fight on, and they want what they're saying is justice for Mica. Part of that is directing us to their leads. So I have FOIA'd these documents from the Myrtle Beach Police Department. I got back about 14 different police reports, and what they show is that there's this pattern of just all this troubling behavior over the course of several years.
I find this and I find this so disturbing, because over 2 years she made over 14 reports, or 14 police reports. Why was this guy never arrested? He was named in the reports as her stalker. He was named in the reports as the person slashing her tires. He was caught on the scene by the police. He was seen there. Why was there no order of protection issued to keep him away from her? And just, it's amazing to me because when in these domestic violence incidents, domestic abuse incidents, if there's no arrest made, it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. And to me, I could sit here on Monday morning quarterback, but I'm just asking the question. Why was there 14 police reports and no arrest? Why? I would like to know the answer to that. 14 police reports against this guy. And I have to question, was it because of his power? Was it because he was a pastor of a church and he had power within the community? Was that why he wasn't arrested? These are some of the questions I have, and I'd like answers to these questions. Why did Mica Miller make 14 police reports over 2 years, filed for divorce, but yet when the police responded, no one was arrested? I would just like to know that. I think that had there been an arrest, maybe the suicide wouldn't have happened. I know I can Monday morning quarterback, but I'm just asking the question.
But mostly in the past 6 months, the events started ticking up. I want to read some of the top headlines from these police officers, what she told police officers. Mica and John Paul had been separated since January of 2023, that she has known her husband, who is 14 years older, that he, quote, groomed her while she worked for him at Solid Rock Church until they were married in 2017. She also said her husband stole her car, that she had been hospitalized against her will, that police found a tracking device on her car. In communication with John Paul Miller over text message, he confirmed to me this. He said, I hired a PI to put trackers on her car to know if she was going to a gun store because she kept trying to get...
That is such absolute bullshit. First of all, it's illegal to have a PI do that. Whatever your reason being, you're not allowed to track someone. That's a legal, basically legal search and seizure, whether she's your wife or not. That's against the law to do that. And then to admit that you had a private eye do it, dude, bring him down with you.
A gun for these past few months. He added, I have never once in my entire life ever hurt her in any way, ever.
Boom, boom. Are you kidding me, dude? 14 police reports in your entire life. You have never, ever hurt her in any way, ever. Come on, please stop it.
Now, a friend of Mica's, Tim Carter, recounts this conversation he had with JP a few years prior. Take a look.
JP personally called me and said, hey, Mica bought a gun. She's out in the backyard. Well, you think she bought it to shoot me? I don't know, JP. I don't know in the house that would be a reason. So, this isn't the first time he's tried or that there's been suicide brought up. He was scared, was wondering, do you think she bought it to shoot me? Well, why would that be a question if you wasn't mistreating her?
In March, she posted on Facebook some advice for anyone struggling with leaving an abusive situation. Here she is.
You don't have to stay in a abusive relationship, whether that's sexual, whether that's somebody forcing you to take illegal drugs, or alcohol abuse, or physical abuse, psychological abuse, making you think that this is all your fault, or you're a bad mom, or you're a bad wife, or you're a bad husband, or you're not giving it your all when you know you are.
Mica's father, Michael, posting just on Facebook saying, it's not over. The floodgates are opening. Justice for Mica. Elizabeth?
Thanks so much.
So, just amazing that, I'm amazed a little bit, and not just amazed, but a little perturbed, a little upset that it seems like no actions were taken. 14 reports over 2 years. Was he ever arrested? Was he ever arrested? That would be the one of the first questions I would ask. Uh, and apparently he was never arrested. He was allowed to continue his abusive ways, and as a result, we all know the ending of this, which was not a good ending whatsoever. Mica Miller manipulated, abused, and stalked by her husband. What happens now? Well, what I would like to see happen is some accountability. I would like to see John Paul Miller called on the carpet here in some way, as so many people are pointing the finger at him. The family of Mica Miller, the friends of Mica Miller, perhaps some of the congregants of his church saw this abuse for what it was. But yet, according to John Paul Miller, I never, ever mistreated my wife in any way, shape, or form. In so many words, he said that, But yet, everyone else saw it. And the 14 police reports made over 2 years don't tell the same story as you're telling, John Paul Miller, pastor of the Solid Rock Church. Doesn't tell you that, just by your position, you're probably a manipulator, and how many people are going to come across now as witnesses to this? Mica Miller purchasing a gun. Why'd she do it? Well, because she was being tortured. It was unrelenting. It didn't stop. And she wanted out. She got the strength to get out, to file for divorce. And what happened? This guy doubled down. Imagine someone having power of your power of attorney over your health care and put you in a mental hospital when you're not, you don't have mental issues, and he has the power to do that, and he put her in a mental hospital for 2 days. Is that a loving husband that's not manipulating, that's not doing anything bad to his wife? I find that horrific. How about a guy that threatens to take her car away? She was obviously beholding to him financially also. And he took her car, and she wanted to make a report that he stole it, but you can't steal marital property. So he couldn't be charged with that. He was a real slick little weasel, this guy, hiding behind his position, skirting the edges of the law. I think he broke the law. I don't think he skirted the edges. I think he absolutely broke the law. And why he wasn't arrested can only be answered by the local police. I think he should have been arrested. I think he should have been arrested numerous times. And had he been arrested, had this guy been arrested, maybe Mica would still be with us today, But we will never know the answer to that, because we all know what happened, and now, the family's going to have to fight this guy civilly. And I think they're prepared to do that. I think a lot of people love Mica Miller. A lot of people want to see justice. Many people don't even believe that even with the police investigation determining that this was in fact a suicide, many people don't want to believe that. Many people think that something more nefarious happened. They want to know everything. They want to know physically, where was John Paul Miller when this happened? Was he really out of state? Is there pictures of him? What is the proof they have that he was nowhere near this location? Do they have people that saw him at that location? I think the police have pretty good evidence that he didn't do this, but there's no doubt that is and was an abusive husband. So, folks, we're going to keep following this as new information comes across. But I just want to thank everyone for the support of Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. And if you're not subscribed, go on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, hit the like button, share us with your friends, your family, and we would appreciate that. And if you want to contribute to us, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels, and we also have a YouTube channel membership with Cannon, 5 different levels. So for now, folks, have a great night, and I'll see you soon, and God bless.
One episode just ain't enough.